Welcome back to day 2 of our 7-day copywriting challenge. Yesterday we laid the foundation by understanding what copywriting is, where it is used, and why it is such a valuable skill. So today we are going to focus on three very important parts of copywriting, which are the headlines, hooks, and CTAs. These three elements can determine whether someone stops, pay attention, continue reading, and eventually take action. So today I want you to think beyond just writing words. I want you to start thinking about how those words make the reader respond. So let's get into it. Before we talk about the headlines and hooks, let's talk about something very important, which is the attention. Think about your social media feed, for example. Every single day you see hundreds of posts, but do you stop to read every single one of them? Do you stop to read every single one? Of course not. That is because attention is limited. It is limited. Your audience has other posts, other videos, other advertisements, messages, notifications, and distractions competing for their attention. So before someone can read your message, you have to earn their attention first. Okay? And that's where the headline and the hook comes in. They help you answer one very important question. Why should this person pay attention to what I am saying? Why should this person pay attention to what I am saying? Okay? So, what exactly is a headline? A headline is a statement designed to grab attention and communicate the main idea or promise of your message. You can find headlines in advertisements, sales pages, emails, websites, blog posts, landing pages, okay, and many other forms of marketing. Now, let's look at the example on this slide. Okay, copywriting course available. Now, let's look at the example on this slide. 5 tips for writing better social media posts. 5 tips for writing better social media posts. There's nothing technically wrong with that sentence, okay? But it doesn't give me much reason to care. Okay, now let's look at the second one. Struggling to get people to stop scrolling? Try these 5 copywriting tips. That immediately gives me a reason to pay attention. It communicates a potential benefit. Okay, and that is what we are looking for. Okay, the second headline speaks directly to a problem, creates curiosity, and gives the reader the reason to continue reading. I hope you understand. A good headline doesn't simply announce something. It gives the reader a reason to continue reading. It gives the reader a reason to continue reading. A strong headline doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, beginners sometimes make the mistake of thinking that good copy has to sound very intelligent. It doesn't. Your headline should make the reader think, oh, this is for me. Okay? It could be addressing a problem they are experiencing. It could communicate a benefit they want. It could speak to a desire they already have. It could create curiosity, promise a specific outcome, or it could simply present a strong idea. But here is something I want you to remember. Your headline job is not to say everything. The job of your headline or your headlines is not to say everything. Its job is to make people want to read the next line. So don't try to explain your entire product in the headline. Don't try to explain your entire product in the headline. Just earn the next few seconds of attention. Okay, now let's make this practical. Here is a simple beginner friendly headline formula. Okay, get plus desired results without, like, plus without plus the common problem. For example, learn how to write better sales copy without, you can see, better sales copy, the desired result, without struggling to write without struggling to find the right words. Okay, or build your first copywriting portfolio without having to pay, or without having a paying client. You can see. Now, I don't want you to think you need to memorize dozens of formulas. Formulas are useful because they give you a starting point. But the real skill is understanding why the formula works. In both examples, we are showing the reader something they want while addressing something they don't want. Okay? That is the principle. And as you become better at copywriting, you will be able to create strong headlines without having to consciously think about a formula every single time. Do you understand? Now let us move to the hook. A hook is the opening statement designed to capture attention and make someone want to continue reading. Think of it this way: the hook is the reason someone keeps reading. You see hooks everywhere. Your social media posts use hooks, video scripts use hooks, the emails you see, they use hooks, advertisements also use hooks, sales pages use hooks also. Imagine someone sees your content and your first sentence is boring. They may simply scroll away. Okay, they may simply just scroll away. But if your opening makes them curious, makes them feel understood, or makes them want an answer, okay, you have created a reason for them to continue reading or to continue watching your video. That's what a hook does. Okay, let me show you 4 simple hooks type, okay, you can start practicing with. The first is the question hook. For example, what if your biggest copywriting problem isn't your writing? Okay, that creates a question in the reader's mind. Then we have the problem hook. You are posting consistently, but nobody is buying. Here is why. That immediately speaks to a problem. Okay, then we have the curiosity hook. There is one mistake beginners make before they even write their first sentence. Now the reader wants to know what that mistake is. And finally, we have the bold statement. Good writing doesn't automatically sell. That challenges something the reader may believe. Okay, but remember something: these are starting points. They are not magic formulas. The goal isn't to copy the exact sentence. The goal is to understand how hooks create a reason to continue. Okay, now this is where beginners sometimes get confused. Over to the second side of the slide. A headline and a hook can be very similar, and sometimes the terms are even used interchangeably. Okay, but there is a useful distinction to understand. The headline usually introduces the main message or promise, okay, while the hook pulls the reader further into that message. So let's think of it like this: your headline gets attention, your hook keep that attention, and depending on the platform, they can overlap. Okay, depending on the platform, they can overlap. For example, on the social media, the first sentence of a post may function as both the headlines and the hook. So don't get too caught up in this terminology, okay? What matters is that you understand the job of each element, okay? You understand what each element is doing. Now, let's talk about the third element, the CTA. CTA means call to action. And this is very important because you can get someone's attention, you can make them interested, you can persuade them, but if you don't sell them, if you don't tell them what next to do or the next step to take, you may lose the opportunity. A CTA is simply the instruction telling your audience or your customer what actions to take, what action to take. It could be buy now, sign up, download the guide, book a call, send a message, join the class, learn more. The important thing is that the audience should have to guess, sorry, the audience shouldn't have to guess what you want them to do. Your audience should not have to guess what you want them to do. Okay, your job is to tell them clearly, okay, on the next step for them to take. Okay, now let's look at the difference between weak CTA and a strong one. A weak CTA says, if you are interested, you can check it out. There is no urgency, there is no clear instruction, and the reader may still wonder, okay, what exactly should I do? Now let's compare that with download your copy today. Okay, that is clear. Or send me a DM to get started. Again, very clear. So when you are writing your CTA, don't be afraid to tell people exactly what next step to take. Make the action obvious. Make the action obvious. Now, before we move on, I want to quickly point out something. You may have noticed that everything we have been discussing so far, the attention, hooks, headlines, and CTA, is not really about putting random words together. Okay? There's actually psychology behind why certain words make people stop, continue reading and feel something, and also eventually take action. And that is actually one of the reasons I wrote my ebook, The Psychology of Copywriting. I'm not going to go deeply into the book right now because I want us to focus on today's lesson. But I want to mention it because as we continue this challenge, especially when we get to day 3, we are going to go deeper into the psychology behind persuasive copy. Okay? So keep that in mind as we continue. Okay? Now let's put everything we have learned together. Think about the journey you are taking your reader through. Okay, let's think about the journey you're taking your reader through. First, you need the headline. Its job is to get attention. Then comes the hook. Its job is to create curiosity and keep your audience or your customer, okay, to keep them reading. Okay. And then we have the CTA. Its job is to tell the people what next to do. Never assume that your audience knows the next step to take. Okay, never assume that your customer or your audience knows the next step to take. Always tell them which step or the next step to take. Okay, so you can think about this flow as attention, interest, okay, action. This is a very simple way of thinking about persuasive communication. Attention, interest, action. Of course, real copy can be much more complex, difficult than this. But as a beginner, understanding this basic flow, okay, gives you a strong foundation. Understanding this basic flow gives you a strong foundation. Now, it is your turn. I want you to imagine that you are promoting a 30-day fitness program. Your audience is busy women who want to get fit but struggle to find time. I want you to write Three things. Number one, write one headline for me, one hook, and one CTA. Don't try to sound sophisticated, okay? Don't try to impress me with big grammars. Think about the person you are speaking to. What does she want? What problem is she facing? What will make her stop and pay attention? Take a moment and write your answer. Let me show you an example here. So our headline is going to be get okay, let me increase my font. Okay. Get feet. Also, please take note. When writing your headline, the first letter of each words in your headline should be in capital letter. Okay? The first letter in your headline, in each word in your headline should be in capital letter. Get fit in just 30 days. Or sorry, in just 30 minutes. Okay? In just 30 minutes a day. Sorry. A day. Ma. Even 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 with a busy even with a busy schedule. Even with a busy schedule. Okay, full stop. So this is our headline. This is our headline. Okay, now our hook. But before we write our hook, why does this headline work? Because it speaks directly to the desired result while addressing the audience problem. Okay, and that audience problem is lack of time. Lack of time. Okay, then let's write our hook. Our hook, you don't you don't need 2 hours 2 hours 2 hours at the gym to start seeing progress or results. Let's use progress or let's use results. Okay, so that is our hook. So that is our hook. Okay, here we are addressing a belief or concern the audience may have. And also lastly, the CTA. Okay, our CTA could be join the 30-day 30-day program program today. Okay? Join our 30-day program today. Very clear. Okay? Now let's look at the flow. Let's look at the flow. Yeah. Promise, okay, problem or desire, and action. Promise, problem or desire, and action. That is the basic structure we are practicing. Okay? Now, let's talk about some mistakes I want you to avoid. Let's talk about some mistakes I want you to avoid. Please, first, try to sound avoid this mistake, trying to sound too intelligent. Okay, trying to sound too intelligent. Remember, your job isn't to impress the reader with vocabulary. Your job is to communicate clearly. Please let your copies or whatever you're writing be clear and easy to understand. Second, avoid making everything about the product. Your audience doesn't wake up thinking about your product. They are thinking about their problems, their goals, their desires, and their lives. So talk about what matters to them. Number 3, avoid writing vague headlines. Specificity is powerful. Okay? Instead of making a broad promise, be as specific as you can when the situation allows you. Okay? Be as specific as you can. Number 4, avoid forgetting the CTA. Don't assume people automatically know what next to do, like I said earlier. Tell them. Okay? And finally, avoid trying to say everything in the headline. Your headline doesn't need to explain the entire offer. Its job is to earn attention and make the reader want to read your next line. That is it. Okay? So, for your assignment, your challenge today, I want you to choose one product or service, I mean. It could be something you are selling, it could be a business you want to promote, or it could simply be a product you create for practice. Then write 5 headlines, 5 hooks, 5 CTAs. Please just post your work in the WhatsApp group. Okay, please, your work should be in Google Docs format. Okay, please just post it in the WhatsApp group, and please don't delete your first attempt. Don't. Okay, I actually want you to keep it, because as we continue learning, you are going to improve, and later when you look back at what you wrote today, you'll be able to see your progress. Don't wait until you are perfect before you practice. Practice is how you become better. Okay, practice is how you become better. Before we close today's class, I want to take a few minutes to properly introduce something I have created for you. Okay, earlier I briefly mentioned my ebook, The Psychology of Copywriting, and now I want to tell you a little more about why I wrote it. Because when people hear the word copywriting, they often think it is simply about knowing how to write. But copywriting is much deeper than that. Okay, you can be an excellent writer and still write copies that doesn't sell. Why? Because good writing and persuasive writing are not exactly the same. Copywriting is about understanding people. It is about understanding what captures attention, what creates emotions, what makes someone curious, and what makes an offer feel relevant, what makes someone trust a message, and ultimately, what can move someone towards taking action. That is what inspired me to write The Psychology of Copywriting. The book explores the psychological principles behind persuasive communication and how you can apply these principles when writing copies. So if you have been wondering, why does one headline makes me stop scrolling why another doesn't? Why do certain words makes an offer feel more attractive? Why do some messages create an emotional response? Why do people respond to certain calls and certain CTA, call to action? These are the kind of question that this book helps you understand. And I want to make something clear. You don't need to be an expert copywriter before you read it. Okay, it is actually something I want beginners to be able to learn from. So if today's lesson made you curious about what happens in the reader's mind when they encounter your copy, then I believe you will find this book useful. Okay, I will share the details on how you can get the psychology of copywriting after the class. But don't feel like you have to rush, okay? You don't have to rush. My goal is for you to first understand what we are learning here. Apply it, practice it, and then decide whether the book is something you want to go deeper with. Because today's lesson was about what to write. Tomorrow we are going to start looking at something even deeper. Why certain messages, okay, work. And that's where psychology comes in. That's where psychology comes in. So that is it for today, for day 2. Today we learned about headlines, hooks, and CTAs. You learn how to capture attention and how to keep someone interested and how to guide them through taking action. But tomorrow we are going underneath the surface. We are going to talk about the psychology behind persuasive copy. Okay, we are going to look at why certain words, ideas, emotions, and messages can influence the way people respond. So see you tomorrow. Okay, I just don't want you to think like a writer. Okay, I want you to start thinking like a marketer, like a copywriter, a professional copywriter, a marketer. Okay, so see you in day 3. Bye.